Hello, are you able to see me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, great. So Narendra is not.
I should. So no right timing.
Really very sorry to all our audience. It's the first time ever we've got this technical glitch. It's just that we were having a lot of registration, so we wanted to restrict it, and well, it just gave us a lesson to learn. So I think we have to be a little more careful next time when we do this.
Are you able to see me properly?
Yes, sir. Completely. Yes.
Audio okay? Sound is okay?
Yes, sir. Sare Jahan se acha, Hindustan hamara. Yes, out of the places around the world, best of all is our India. Good evening, one and all. I am Priyadarshini Rahul, National President, Next Gen Political Leaders, who will take you through today's program. Wishing you all a very happy 74th Independence Day, and thank you so much for joining in to this celebration. May I request Mr. Sridhar Raj, convener of NGPL, to deliver the welcome address.
Good evening to good evening all. I take immense pleasure in welcoming you all to our Independence Day celebration. I also welcome all our dignitaries, guests, as well as our NGPL members across India. Thank you for your presence and happy 74th Independence Day. On this proud day of our nation's legacy, apart from remembering sacrifices of our great freedom fighters, it's imperative to remember people who have strayed hard for our nation's progress post-independence. Today, we have two such great men who spend most part of their lives in taking our nation from good to great. They need no introduction for their performance speaks strength. A special welcome to our chief guest, Padma Bhushan recipient and father of the BrahMos Mission Project, Dr. A. Shivadanu Pillai and Sri S. Narendra, former information advisor to four prime ministers of India. Today, they will share their valuable thoughts on the topic of the day, responsible citizens for a better India. let's hear from these great achievers on how we can be responsible citizens to do justice and our duty to sacrifices made by our freedom fighters who have left free India in our hands. Thank you all. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, Sridhar. Before we get into the introductory speech, so are we having Narendra sir with us? I am not able to see him. Narendra sir?
He's muted. Maybe his camera is covered.
I don't see him. Is Narendra sir with us?
Yeah, he's here, but video and audio are in mute.
I'm trying to unmute. It's not unmuting.
He can only unmute, but I think his camera must be closed or covered. That's why his camera is not seen.
Yeah.
Srinivasan sir, would you want to just call him by side and just confirm in that status? So without further delay, so may I request Ms. Susan Koshi, Editor-in-Chief, Presence, to deliver the introductory remarks.
Thank you, Priya. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This evening's celebration of the 74th Independence Day of our country is held under the auspices of NGPL and Presence. NGPL and Presence are initiatives of Prime Point Foundation, which is a not-for-profit organization founded by Prime Point Srinivasan 20 years ago. Last month, its landmark 2-decade anniversary was celebrated. Prime Point Foundation has 5 initiatives under its umbrella. In the order of age, the initiatives are e-magazine Presence, started in 2006 on the suggestion of late Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, former President of India, to promote positive journalism. Education Loan Task Force, or ELTF, started in 2010 to promote awareness, especially among students, about education loan. Sansad Ratna Awards, started in 2010 to honor top performing parliamentarians annually based on performance parameters. Digital Journalists Association of India, or DJI, started in 2015 to facilitate development of digital journalism among students and professionals. Digital Security Association of India, or DSI, started in 2017 to create awareness about digital security and cyber law. And finally, Next Gen Political Leaders, or NGPL, the latest of the initiatives, started in 2018 with the objective to develop knowledge and leadership skills among young and aspiring political leaders from a spectrum of political parties. NGPL gives them innumerable opportunities to interact with renowned parliamentarians and other dignitaries and gain insight and knowledge. Today's webinar on the theme, Responsible Citizens for a Better India, is an opportunity to learn how to be good citizens in order to be good political leaders. Over to you, Priya Rahul, National President NGPL, to introduce our special guests of honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. This day brings...
Priya, Mr. Narendra, can you request him to unmute, because I have sent a request to unmute his camera and...
Camera is unmuted.
Mic. Mr. Narendra, can you kindly...
Unmuted.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Oh,
Your camera as well as mic.
Thank you, sir, and thank you so much for bearing with our technical glitch, sir. We're very sorry about it, and thank you personally to both of our chief guests who have been showing so much of patience in coming on board with us. Thank you so much, Susan, ma'am. This day becomes even more special having our esteemed dignitaries, each of who have rendered about 40 years of their service in building the proud India we live in. An introduction about Dr. Sivathanu Pillai. Dr. A. Sivathanu Pillai graduated in electrical engineering from Madras University, underwent management program at Harvard Business School, and obtained PhD from Pune University. Dr. Pillai's 4 decades of experience in ISRO and DRDO under the great visionary leaders, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, Professor Satish Dhawan, and Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam made him a technology leader in the field of launch spectrals and guided missiles. His contribution to the successful development of SLV3 as a core team member and evolution of PSLV configuration for ISRO have been remarkable. Dr. Pillai's skills in networking enabled the realization of Agni, Prithvi, Nag, Akash missile as its program director. BrahMos Aerospace is a unique joint venture, first of its kind between India and Russia, to design, develop, produce, and market the most advanced supersonic cruise missile. His outstanding leadership qualities made India proud to possess the fastest, highly precise, and most potent missile BrahMos inducted in the Indian Army Force. BrahMos is the world's leader in the family of cruise missile, surpassing those in the developed countries. As the founder, CEO, and MD of this joint venture, Dr. Pillai is regarded as the father of BrahMos. He has received many honorary doctorates from 12 reputed universities of India and Russia. The Moscow University of Security, Defense, and Law Enforcement honored Dr. Pillai with the Order of the Peter the Great and the Academician of the university. Dr. Pillai has published many papers in the international and national journals and conferences. Dr. Pillai has written many books and has co-authored many with Dr. Kalam. Dr. Pillai is a recipient of various prestigious awards, including Padma Shri in the year 2002 and Padma Bhushan in the year 2013 by the Government of India for the contribution of aerospace and missile technology, and Order of Friendship by the Government of Russian Federation, the highest Russian award for the foreign citizen of highest order. Technology Leadership Award, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai Research Award, Organization of Industrial, Spiritual and Cultural Advancement International Award from Japan, Raja Ram Mohan Purashkar, Lokmanya Tilak Award, Lal Bahadur Shastri Award are a few to name. We can't be more grateful for having you with us, sir, and can't wait to hear from you more. Over to you, Padma Shri Dr. Sivaddhana Pillai, sir.
Good evening to all of you. My greetings on this Independence Day. Particularly, I would like to thank Priyadarshini, who has organized this meet. And I welcome Mr. Narendra, who has joined us. And on this day, Mr. Srinivasan has selected very important topic, responsible citizens for better India. Therefore, I will talk about youth and the nation. When I think of youth of India, I'm reminded of a poem of 13th century by Sufi poet, Jalaluddin Rumi. He talks for the youth or the young people. I am born with potential. I am born with goodness and interest. I am born with ideas and dreams. I am born with greatness. I am born with confidence. I am born with courage. Also, I am born with wings. So I am not meant for crawling. I have wings. I will fly and fly. The education has given us the knowledge. That means the wing. The knowledge is the wings for the people. The world is open now. Once you have got wings, you can fly anywhere. You need to put hard work and acquire the required skill to shine in your work and develop your trajectory for your career path. Today, with the large data available, new technologies like artificial intelligence, modern laboratories, so there is vast opportunity to learn more for improving creativity in your minds. Creativity is a very important requirement for developing knowledge. Dr. Abdul Kalam advocated continuous learning in life. He said, learning gives creativity. Creativity leads to thinking. Thinking provides knowledge. Knowledge makes you great. So you see that two important terms, creativity and knowledge. One more term is very important. When we want to develop as a good personality, we need to have one important thing called righteousness. Earlier, great personalities came because of good parental care, teaching by well-renowned people, and companionship of great books. Today, we are witnessing a cultural shock in our society. The whole humanity is now devoting more attention to coronavirus, economic turbulence, climatic change, and safety of women and children, societal degradation, rampant corruption, poverty, and international terrorism. So it is therefore essential that in our institutions, and when we are meeting youth, we have to nurture and raise their minds to understand the type of world we are. So I'm happy to know this Prime Point and this organization has committed to the mission to develop value-based, inclusive personality development and empowerment of the youth. I'm very happy to know that. So in the earlier days, when I was studying in the school, I would like to tell you, we had moral class. Every week, one class by a very renowned person, the senior lecturer, he comes and takes a class for 1 hour on moral values. It is very important. Today, we don't have such things in our schools and colleges. So the idea is to ensure embedding righteousness in the mind. What will happen if this righteousness is there? Once Dr. Kalam and myself, we went to Puttaparthi. There was a convocation, and Dr. Kalam, as President of India, was to give the convocation. And in the opening, Sri Sai Baba, Satya Sai Baba, was giving his address. During his address, we heard a very important message. He said, where there is righteousness in the heart, there is beauty in the character. When there is beauty in the character, there's harmony in the home. When there is harmony in the home, there is order in the nation. When there is order in the nation, there is peace of the world. What a great message Satya Baba gave. Dr. Kalam, quite often, he quotes this message to the people and to the parliamentarians to have righteousness.
Can you be a little louder, sir? I'm sorry I'm disturbing you. So can you be a little louder, sir? We're not able to hear you very clearly. Can you just be a little louder, sir?
Okay.
Probably.
India is a great nation. See, 2000 years before, India was on the top of the world. Many missionaries came. The so-called saints whom we say, they're all great scientists. Science, mathematics, and medicine, aviation, astronomy, all these things came from them. 5,000 years before, the cosmology was pronounced by Acharya Kapil. Even today, what we are following as the all Big Bang experiments and all scientific analysis, we have come to the same conclusion. He had told what is the diameter of the earth. Can you believe? Distance between earth and sun and different stars. That accurately, people have now found out by measurement that information given during that time was correct. Acharya Kanad was the first man to propound the theory of atom. Today we are studying atomic energy in a big way. The whole thing is there. Acharya Sushruta performed plastic surgery in 600 BC. All the techniques he has used is being followed today. Today's plastic surgery is the same as what Sushruta told. You know, there is a Bhaskaracharya who introduced algebra, was the first to discover gravity 500 years before Isaac Newton. We celebrate Newton, we don't celebrate Bhaskaracharya. Aryabhatta, a genius in mathematics, the trigonometry man, he was the first to proclaim in 500 AD that the earth is round and rotates on its axis 1,000 years before Copernicus and Galileo. So this is the greatness of our people. You know about Sir C.V. Raman, Ramanujam, Sir Chandrasekhar Subramaniam, all these great people came to India. And you know, there are some people who have excelled in their contribution in scientific discovery, intelligence, compassion, courage, and leadership. Today's information technology is based on binary numbers, of which 0 was the contribution from India. Albert Einstein once said, we owe a lot to the Indians. We owe a lot to the Indians who taught us how to count, without which no worthwhile scientific discovery would have been made. See, this is the proof of Indian brains are the best. So we belong to a gene of greatness. So we have to develop that. So what has happened to us today? We were ruled by others. We lost everything during the last 1,000 years. And now we set up ourselves with a very lower mindset. Yes, we must come out of that. We must defeat the defeatist spirits. The dream of living in prosperous India, a happy India, a peaceful India, and most importantly, a safe India is to be achieved. The combination of prosperity, happiness, peace, and safety always have to come together. Now all of them converge, then India will truly be a developed nation. You know, there are a lot of problems we face. I would like to tell 1 or 2 examples in my career. In 1983, Dr. Abdul Kalam conceived a program called Integrated Guided Missile Development, which constituted 5 missiles. You must have heard the names: Prithvi, Agni, Akash, Nag, and Trishul. You know, immediately the big countries joined together and signed MOU to ban any information flow or material flow to India. That is called MTCR, Missile Technology Control Treaty. All the people joined together to see India was not able to develop the missile technology. So we were not afraid of such things. When such a thing comes, it's a boon for us. When somebody says no to us, we want to prove that we are good. So what we have done, we identified all the critical areas. We were 30 to 40 years behind the developed country, but we wanted to overtake them. We was given a challenge to us. We said that, oh, you have put a ban on us, we will now overtake you. How we can overtake 40 years? By new concepts, by forecasting technology which others could not forecast. This was the thing. Who will do that? Only young people can do. So we depended on 200 young people who have just come from college, and we gave the responsibility to them to after identifying the critical technologies, you guys, you develop the technologies. So what is the solution? What happened? Today we have Agni, which goes 5,000 kilometers. It involves re-entry technology. It involves designing a shape. You know, space shuttle Kalpana Chawla went. She did not return because of the thermal protection system failed. But our Agni, all the flights, the thermal protection worked. So we also go to the altitude. 800 kilometer altitude, the Agni missile goes, and when it comes back at the re-entry point, 85 kilometer, the temperature is 3000 degrees centigrade. It has to cross. And it has to go to the right place. That means the shape has to be designed such a way that it reaches the point which needed a supercomputer. We developed the supercomputer. The supercomputer was refused to us. But our young guys, 14 of them, developed a computer which was 20 times faster than the Cray computer which was refused to us. That means we have our innate gene is so good that we will be able to achieve anything we want. We have got phased array radar for which the phase shifter is a big technology. Our guys have developed that. And because of that, today we can have multi-target engagement. When hundreds of aircraft come to attack us, we send hundreds of missiles, all controlled by one radar, tracking, identifying the target, then sending the missile to the right path in a closed loop system, all done by one radar. So this is a big technology we have done. So like this, there are many things. You see, when people send the anti-tank missile, one tank to another tank, they send directly and hit. This is American technology. Our technology is we send the missile to the manhole, which is the weakest point in the tank, with a very small diameter and thickness is small there. So we send that. To that, you need a Cobra trajectory to hit that point. That's why that missile is called NOG. So see, it's all, you are able to do because you wanted to defeat the developed countries. That was the mission. Now you see, we were discussing in 90s, 90, 91, that time. Dr. Kalam was debating with me. See, when we launched SLV3, we were 7th in the world. When we have launched Agni, we are 6th in the world. He said, when we will become first in the world? This is a question. So that time, I was getting a break to go to Harvard Business School. So he said, your mission to go to Harvard Business School is to come back with an idea how India will become number one. That was the mission given to me. So when I was in Harvard, fortunately, the Gulf War was going on. Gulf War, Saddam Hussein was very strong. He laid anti-air aircraft, that is air defense system, laid out. Any bombing the Americans lead to, it will be smashed. That was their plan. But what the Americans did was to send a cruise missile, which was flying very low and destroying only the radars, which were put for looking up. So he was looking up, but bottom, the whole thing was destroyed by the cruise missile. That was a Tomahawk missile. I was in USA studying in Harvard, but I was studying the war scenario. Then I told him from there, I got it. We have to have a cruise missile. Americans, after all, they have developed a subsonic cruise missile, a missile which flies less than the speed of sound. We will develop supersonic cruise missile. Then we will become first. He said, yes, you come back quickly, he said. Then we have to make a supersonic cruise missile. We don't have that engine. Even subsonic, we don't have engine. So then I had some connections with Russia. We went to Russia, talked to them. And fortunately, Russia was the only country developed a supersonic engine, which was lying there because they collapsed. Soviet Union collapsed. There was no fund available. So the engine was just idle. I told them that let us use this. So they agreed and we formed the joint venture. The joint venture is called BrahMos. It is called BrahMos because it's a two-nation program. And we wanted to give a name which connects both the nations. So how do you connect both nations? Then we thought that this missile has to fly over water. It's an anti-ship missile, ship-to-ship missile. So let us have a water name. You can have sea, ocean, or river. But we thought of Brahmaputra because that is the furious river in India. It has got the Brahma, new creation. It has got, most importantly, it was flowing at the feet of Kamakhya temple. Kamakhya temple is a Shakti Pidam in Augati. So we thought the power is there, and so the river is flowing through the power, so we should use that. Then similarly, we have to connect with Russia. So Russia, the Kremlin is the seat of power. So the Moskva River is flowing there. And our partner is also in Moscow. So we thought we had to use Moskva. That's how the BrahMos name came. And we started, we started BrahMos, but today it is Brahmastra, because it is the fastest cruise missile in the world. It is highly precise, and its energy is so high, the kinetic energy, because of the velocity, speed. We are 9 times powerful than the Tomahawk or the Americans have developed. That's what we have achieved. And India is the only country today to have such a missile in land, in ship, and in air. All platforms, all our 3 wings of armed forces, they have inducted. They are very proud to have BrahMos today. This is what we have achieved. So we got #1 position. This is what we need. Every youth should think how we can make our country #1 in their field. Each field we should become #1. That's what is required. So India is a knowledge country. We have all moved to knowledge age now. We are in knowledge society. So this is an opportunity for us to make ourselves knowledge people. So 21st century belongs to the youth. And definitely the youth will make India a great nation. See, history has proven that those who dare to imagine the impossible are the ones who break all human limitations. In every field of human endeavor, whether science, medicine, sports, arts, the names of the people who imagined the impossible and achieved are engraved in our history. So you must develop creative thinking. This beautiful life is one-time opportunity. You must be remembered for your achievement. When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. So think high. Sarabhai used to tell us, we were writing the 10-year profile. I was doing it in 1970, a 10-year profile for the space program in our country. So I was very young at that time. I was 22 at that time. So he used to tell, hey guys, you think high. When you think high, you'll achieve high. So think high, it will come. So the Maharishi Patanjali states, when you are inspired by some great purpose, some extraordinary work, all your thoughts break their bounds. Your mind transcends limitations. Your consciousness expands in every direction, and you find yourself in a new, great, and wonderful world. Dormant forces, faculties, and talents become alive, and you discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you ever dreamt yourself to be. So, my dear friends who are listening to this lecture, remember that you are the makers of developed India. Great aim, creativity, self-confidence, mental toughness, innovation, hard work, and perseverance. And above all, love for India and righteousness in action are the important factors that will drive you for the success in all your endeavors and to make our country great. எண்ணிய முடிதல் வேண்டும், நல்லவே எண்ணல் வேண்டும். எண்ணிய நெஞ்சம் வேண்டும், தெளிந்த நல்லறிவு வேண்டும். மனதில் உறுதி வேண்டும், வாக்கினிலே இனிமை வேண்டும். நினைவு நல்லது வேண்டும், நெருங்கின பொருள் கைப்பட வேண்டும். பாரதியார். Wish you all the best on this great day, 74th Independence Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. That was a phenomenal expression of your experience and knowledge. We are more excited to hear your opinion during our interactive session, which will just start in a bit. Introducing Sri S. Narendra, sir, a stalwart in international and national communication and an expert in handling media relations for Government of India. Sri S. Narendra was from the first batch of Indian Information Service conducted by the Union Public Service Commission. He was well recognized and had an applauding 40 years of service with the government of India. And he was the information advisor to 4 former Prime Ministers of India, to state Sri Narasimha Rao, Sri I.K. Gujral, Sri Deva Gowda, Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee. He was also the director of advertisements of Government of India. He was the foreign correspondent in Southeast Asia and also was a chief spokesperson for Government of India for more than 7 years. He handled with utmost caution and command when he stood as a spokesperson for the government during the globalization, liberalization and privatization. Under his leadership, the communication process was steady in maintaining the image of India at the global arena. He handled communication of the world famous Pokhran II press conference of Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee alongside Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam and Dr. Chidambaram. He is an expert in handling sensitive communication and has stood as a communication guru to many communication experts in India. He is a columnist in various national and international newspapers. Out of 73 years of India's independence, he had served in the most crucial 40 years of national development and establishment. A person with a humble gesture and an incomparable specialist in media and communication. With no further delay, can we hear from you, sir, Sri Narendra, our guest of honor?
Namaskaram, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm audible?
Yes, sir.
Greetings to all of you on this 74th Independence Day. It is an honor to be sharing the dais with Dr. Pillai, a distinguished scientist. And I'm thankful to you and Ms. Srinivasan giving me this opportunity. As the time is short, I'll make myself very brief. India has come a long way. Today, in the context of pandemic, there is a lot of pessimism prevailing about India, particularly among the youth, because what are their prospects in India? When we began in 1947, 85% of the people were poor. Today, 80% of the people are above poverty, only 20% of the people are below poverty line. I have gone through rationing. We had to stand in queue and come out without anything in the evening because India was producing less than 50 tons of food grains. And today we are a major exporter of food grains. And agriculture today is the second largest foreign exchange earner. Dr. Pillai has already mapped out what we had done in the area of science and technology where we were nowhere. Therefore, I think this pessimism that prevailing today in the pandemic situation is a very, very temporary phase. The whole world is going through it. We have to think positively to come out of this situation. While talking to you, you asked me, how do we become responsible citizens? It is commendable that NGPL is engaged in training future leaders. I don't know why to think of only political leaders. We need leaders in every field. In teaching, we need leaders. In science, we need leaders. In ordinary shop floor of a factory, we need leaders. Leadership is not something that a leader is identified with the podium who comes and speaks and all the television cameras cover him. Leadership can be shown in every sphere. During the freedom struggle, one of the things Gandhiji did was, although he led the freedom movement, he made everyone who was engaged in freedom movement a leader. I give you an example of my mother. She was illiterate, came from a village, but she educated herself in Sanskrit and Kannada language. And during the Quit India movement, our house was producing, under her leadership, a handwritten newspaper, 100 copies. Each copy had to be handwritten because there was no photocopying in those days. Even carbon paper was not available. Our house was sheltering freedom fighters who were wanted by the police. My mother used to cook the food. She inspired her daughter and eldest son to get into freedom struggle, and all their classmates, she used to lecture them, and they used to take out processions, picketing, boycotting the schools and colleges. So leadership is not something that is only given to somebody who is in the limelight. So long as you train people to be leaders in whatever they are doing. Because today, while at the national level, the Prime Minister, the scientists and others are dealing with various national things, we have a billion problems at the local level, at the village level, at the city level, at the municipal level. Each and every problem requires some amount of civic leadership. One of the things that Gandhiji taught us during the freedom struggle was, how do you prepare yourself for a freedom struggle? You have to be highly disciplined. You have to be self-reliant. Why did you go for Khadi? Atmanirbharta is not something that is an economic concept. It has to be in personal life. We need not be dependent on anybody else for anything else. We should be able to cook, whether a man or a woman. There should be no gender distinction in jobs. Gandhiji also taught us that you clean your own toilets and bathrooms. Why? It is not a dignity of labor. We were thinking that these jobs belong to somebody else. So long as we think that jobs are our own, we don't have to be giving it to others to perform those jobs. We will be more and more independent. We'll be able to think independently, and we are not dependent. One of the things that I want to stress is, we have the greatest textbook on leadership. Do you know where it is? It is not abroad. It is right in India. It was given to us in 1950. In just 4 pages, you have a leadership textbook. That is the Indian Constitution. The first page, the Indian preamble. That preamble has been praised by most of the scholars in the world as summarizing nearly 350 years of social, political, economic thoughts. In 85 words, it gives us a handbook of what we need to do in this country. Then during the emergency, the Constitution included duties. I do not know how many people have ever read those, just 10 items, only 10 items. The first thing is respect the Constitution, abide by the Constitution. Do you know what is the second duty? To be inspired by the ideals of the freedom movement. If you can only read the history of the Indian freedom movement, not as a history, but as a learning textbook as to how to own some of the qualities required for fighting the most oppressive regime in the world peacefully. Gandhiji said, please follow non-violence. Non-violence not as a philosophy, but in a democracy, all of us have a right to protest. That protest has to be peaceful, non-violent. Then only you will be heard. Then Dr. Pillai spoke of how they developed the missiles, how they tried to even overcome all the odds. In that context, the last duty that is enumerated in just 1 page, do you know what is that duty? Today, the Prime Minister, without referring to the Constitution, has said all of us should do in Atmanirbharta the best things, whatever we produce, whatever we do, should be world class. The 10th duty enumerated in the Constitution is strive to achieve excellence in every sphere of life. If only we go through our preamble to the Constitution that gives us the best philosophy, political, economic, and social, that has to be realized, for which we did not depend on the government of India or the state governments. Each one of us, if we can own it and practice it, then the 10 duties. Then there are another beautiful chapter of only 3 pages. I don't think anybody, we all think Constitution legal document for lawyers and the Supreme Court and the High Court. In just 3 pages, the directive principles of state policy, it clearly shows how to live harmoniously, how to have income equality, how to have social unity. In just 4 pages, if you can incorporate this into your training schedule, and if each person can think about it, how we can bring it into our personal lives, we would have provided the best teaching material for training the future leaders. I don't want to take more of your time. I want to leave time for the question and answers. I wish all of you the very best. And once again, my hearty greetings on Independence Day.
Thank you so much, sir. Such a thought-provoking and information-rich speech. Young India has so much to learn from experts like you, sir. With this, we are entering into our interactive session with our guest of honor. To begin with, the first question is to Dr. Sivatanu Pillai, sir. Sir, you have seen India evolve. You have seen citizens evolve. Where are we today? Are we getting better or are we getting worse as a participative citizens?
Before India's independence, there was an urge to get freedom. You see, and the people were highly motivated to work for freedom. So mission only drives. After independence, some missions have come, like Green Revolution. What is a mission? So today we are 300 million tons of food grains we are producing because of that mission. Milk, another mission, White Revolution. We are the largest producer of milk in the world. Communication, supercomputers, space program, nuclear program, strategic missile program. If you take all these things, mission-oriented programs, we have done well. Where we have not done well is mundane things. So what has happened after independence? We started well with the 5-year plan and all those things, but we have lost somehow in between. In 91, we came back again, our opening up of the global arena, and our GDP growth rate increased up to 10.08. But again, we have fallen. So these are all, I will say, the dynamics, what is happening is all due to our political system. Political system is corrupt. You need to be corrupt because you have to face the people for election. During election, people are wanting money. So you have to earn the money. So in that process, we have seen corruption increased. When corruption increases at the leaders level, corruption increases in the next level also. So today I find is our growth is good, but there is impediments. The first and foremost impediment is corruption. Second impediment is the action taken to remove poverty is not good. Poverty is a big problem today. It is there. More than 26% of our population is below poverty. It's not a good situation for our country. Before independence, poverty was accepted because we were fighting for freedom. But after independence, it is not accepted. We have to solve this problem. So now who can solve these problems? Only youth. India has got 700 million youth below 35 years. It's a big resource we are having. No country has got such a resource. So with that background, India can definitely make a big impact in overcoming these problems and make our country the best in the world, like we were the best 2000 years before. Again, we have to become the best.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So before I pose this question to Narendra, sir, just a small clarification. So the reason why NGPL, Next Gen Political Leaders, was focused to political leader training is because that we found training institutes and training availabilities for all other professions or all other career, be it for doctors, be it a civil service aspirant, or you want to be an engineer, you have a training institute. But when it comes to aspiring politicians or young politicians, giving them the right orientation is what we found was a little bit lacking. So in this front, sir, because you have worked so closely with the government for almost close to 40 years, we are trying and we are propagating that every political party should train their political aspirants or young politicians. Will that even be a reality, sir? Will it ever be possible that there will be a proper systematic way of selecting political candidates like it is being done in the Britain?
To whom are you addressing this?
Sir, to you, sir.
See, you may have a formal training program. You're a small organization. What has happened is nurseries of politics are panchayats, municipalities, the local self-governments. During the freedom struggle, most of the people, the first generation of chief ministers and ministers who came, they were all trained in nurseries of politics which were real. Dadabhai Naoroji. Take any name, Sardar Patel. They came from the nurseries of politics. Today, those nurseries of politics are not working. Therefore, you may give the philosophy. What is required is, yes, as Dr. Pillai said, there is corruption, there is everything. We cannot just say the system is corrupt, things are not moving, a sit back. We need to expose the politicians to the bigger vision for the country. For instance, when Kennedy announced that in 10 years we must land in the moon, it triggered the whole thing. Everything cannot be a mission. Missions are only for specific verticals, but development is a very long drawn out process. It requires social change, and for which if you are training anybody, it is not about how to look at a file, how to make decisions, etc. It is exposing them to a larger vision of what are the potential of this country, what is the problem, in spite of the corruption. Today, infrastructure is getting developed. How to ensure quality there? Because corruption will not go away. I have been in Korea several times. I have been in Japan. They are the most corrupt. But you look at everything that happens there. I have been in Thailand. I watch how they build the roads right in front of my house. A lot of corruption is there, 10 or 20% goes away. But the quality of whatever is done is top class. In Japan, what is sold abroad is not bought inside Japan because the quality that is sold to the Japanese is much higher than what is sold outside. In Korea, when I used to be there in the 80s, anybody smoking a foreign cigarette used to be fined. Local people, because they were making their own 555s, which are far superior. Therefore, leave aside the politics part of it. Why our trade, industry, businesses, etc., in spite of all the corruption in Korea, Samsung, LG, these are the products we are buying today. Why it doesn't happen? Education system in Korea, why is top class? In China, there is corruption. Washington Post, New York Times, all the times are harking upon how many billionaires are there. But in spite of that, whatever, I have been to China several times. And if you look at that, whatever is produced today, they can produce the lowest quality and the highest quality. Even the Apple phone depends on them. Therefore, one is give vision to the politicians. What is possible within their constituency? If their constituency develops, the people will vote. So what are the problems of the constituency? can they take up one or two big problems and solve them? The training has to be focused on what is possible in spite of all the systemic ills. If we blame it on the systemic ills, we will never progress. Monarchy was there in India. I am from Karnataka. Krishnadevara Wadiyar is praised very highly. He even pledged his jewelry to build the Kannambadi Dam, Krishnaraj Sagar. But there are corruption, even during his period. Therefore, in spite of corruption, in spite of political ills, etc., let us put it aside. When we talk to the politicians, what is possible within the system, in their constituency, in their states? If you can focus on that, if all the 800 constituencies of India are developed, we will have a better India.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Next question we have from the President of Sansad Ratna Awards Committee, Mr. Bhavnesh. This question is to Dr. Pillai. He asked, a decade ago, you spoke about nanotechnology, sir, in Chennai. Where does Bharat stand today?
Nanotechnology came in a big way some 15 years before. And, we were trying to find solutions to many things. That is, the human being is designed for 100 years. 100 years, each one of us should live fully 100 years without any problem. So the nanotechnology addressed all these issues. So the people started developing all the gadgets, devices, sensors for nanotechnology. If you look at today, we have nano-energetics we have developed. That is, the propellants used for rockets. If you want to increase the energy of the propellant, you have to introduce nano powder into it. When we say nanotechnology, we are increasing the surface area by making the divided particle, you are making surface area more. That means you are creating energy more. So radars have come. Nano fish has come. Nano flight, that is spy. You can have a small parrot-like thing, which flies like a parrot, but it's a spy. It's all nanotechnology. In the energy, to increase the energy of the solar cell, we have to use carbon nanotube embedded into that, aligned vertically, so that the energy becomes more. The solar cell gives more energy. Like that, each area has been addressed. It has been developed in the lab scale. In a big way, only in certain applications it has come. It is not widespread. Not only in India, even in other countries also, it has not become a very, widespread applications have not come. The way it started was good. Development was good. But production and leading to utilization, there's a problem. But we are also working on that. In the biotechnology, there's a big application. The nano-robo is supposed to kill the virus. Even if it is coronavirus, nano-robo can get into the lung and kill that one. That is a type of achievement possible. But today, that is not available with us. So many things can be done with nanotechnology.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir. This question is to Narendra, sir. In this era of social media, communication is an essential tool. How to utilize it in the best way?
You see, media has always been there, from newspaper to television to the new media. Today, roughly about 7 to 8 billion devices are connected to the internet. And out of 9 billion population, nearly half of them use the internet all over the world. The penetration is there. Today, we cannot say there is any community that is media poor, because media reaches everywhere. But what do we use this platform for? If you use it on a general scale, this will not have much of an effect. What is required is the same technology today can be very easily targeted, and you can create imaginary communities based on interests. Suppose there is a women's group that is only interested in your self-help group. If you can bring them all on a platform and communicate what is relevant to them, they will take it. That capacity is available today with the IT. The another great thing that is there is, when we talk of development, what we are talking of is social change, behavior change. Our behavior is very complicated. It is a composite of many things. But today with the artificial intelligence, it is possible to analyze the big data, analyze small communities' behaviors, and then behavior change is a long-term proposition. It will not happen just you press the button, the behavior is changed. It takes centuries for behavior to develop, and to change from one behavior to another is much more difficult. But by segregating small communities and targeting them, segmenting them, addressing their interest, it is possible to bring about social change. Today, we are using the technology very well in India. For instance, out of about 1 billion phones available, nearly half of them are smartphones. But most of them are in urban areas. They're not in rural areas. The technology penetration is not the same. We assume thinking that because I am using smartphone, everybody has a smartphone. We also assume that we are technology savvy. We have to impart those skills to use those technologies before we start using the ICT. In fact, there is a whole series of research going on what is known as ICT 4D. That means how to use ICT for development phase 4. And there they are saying that you cannot use this technology as a mass media. It can be used as a class media, segmented media. For that, you must have a program, you must have a group, and a dedicated group that only addresses a particular issue or a cluster of issues, then takes it up and uses it. It's a great platform, but what is happening today is we are thinking that by just pressing the button, we are going to change everything. It is not going to happen. What is required is human intelligence and artificial intelligence have to interact together today, much more than before. Only then these platforms will be useful to us.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. We have... Yes, sir?
Excellent answer.
Right. So we have another question from Siddharth Mani. He says, this question is to Sivadana Pillai, sir. How big an influence was Dr. Kalam, sir, in your career? What trait in him influenced you, sir, in your successful career?
Yeah, I worked with him for 40 years. And we started our journey in 1970 in SLV3, then in the missile program, in PSLV configuration, and in even he was president, I was with him, traveled with him all the places. So many things happened in life. What has made me to inculcate from him? Two things. One is you always think high level to achieve things. Small mind is a crime. Think high. So this is one point. Second thing is you need to work hard to achieve anything. So you have to work hard. You can't simply assume everything will be on your plate. No, you have to work hard. This is the second thing. These two things motivated me to be with him because he was working, we are also working with him. So naturally, we have to work hard to impress upon him what we have to achieve. So this is the way we proceeded with. Then many things happened on the way. New new ideas, new projects, many things happened. So these are the two important things. One is the vision, to think high. Second one is to have hard work to achieve results. Results-based hard work.
Right, sir. So I have, this is a question to Narendra, sir. Citizens mostly focus on fundamental rights and ignore fundamental duties. Your comment on it, sir.
See, as citizens, irrespective of what we are, we expect many things from the government. The dependency has developed in India over centuries. That Ma-Baap relationship. We rarely think that we also have certain duties. For instance, discipline. The state cannot tell you how to behave. Then, when you have certain legal rights that can be enforced through the law courts, through the governmental machinery, certain entitlements. Today, for everything, we are dependent on the government. Why the government is not giving me this? Why the government is not doing this? That philosophy has to change, and we have to become a lot more independent of the government so that certain problems we take on, the government can be the facilitator, can give the budgets, can give certain technology, but the rest we have to do it. That Ma-Baap relationship mentality has not gone away from us. Even the educated people, even those who are capable of doing certain things, contributing things, think that it is not my job, it is the government that has to do.
Right, sir. So this is a question to Sivathanu Pillai, sir. At a university convocation, you mentioned for an education reform that could harness the best potentials in students. This new education policy, is it any close to your ideal education structure?
What I meant was that in the early stage of life, below 10 years, each boy or girl should lead to, education should lead to creativity in them. See, what we are doing now, you make them to have so much of load on them, books, give them homework, give them, torture them. That's the Indian system. And you have examination, they are under mental pressure. And you have to reply the same thing what is written on the book, not your words. So this type of thing kills the creativity. So what I meant was that the education policy should be creative. In the beginning stage, unless you introduce creativity in the early stage of a child, you cannot make him a creative leader in the later stage. So it has to be done in the early stage. But today's education policy talks more on the board examination. Even in the school level 3 tiers they have introduced. So this type of thing kills the creativity. So people are not focusing the issue of creativity in children. That is my problem. That is what I want to change. In foreign countries like Denmark or Finland, they leave the children. There's no compulsion that they have to go to school, they have to be educated. Up to 7 years, everybody has got the full freedom. They don't go to school at all. Afterwards, there is no examination for them. So this is the way you have to bring child, but bring them together. See, for example, in US, the second standard, when the child is studying, he is taken to the fire engine, explain what is fire engine, how it works, and then they operate at the second standard. They operate the fire engine. So this is the way they bring people to understand things, and the child never forgets what he has done in the second standard throughout his life. But what we do is totally different in our system. Second thing is, we are not valuing more on our Indian system. See, as I was talking, before Newton, we were the first to tell what is the, the gravity. Nobody talks about Indian things. We are all praising all the Europeans. Why it is like that? Our education system should deal with how, for example, rocket. We are talking rocket, America developed Saturn V and they launched to moon like that. The rocket was first developed in India, in Mysore. The first rocket came from India. We never teach our people that the first rocket was used by our country. You don't say that. So like this, many things. Technology today, when we talk about technology, you see, it takes steel. The iron pillar in Qutub Minar doesn't get trusted. Can anybody, any foreigner, can give the reason why it is not getting trusted? No, nobody can tell that. So that is our technology. We are not praising our technology level. That is the problem in our education system. So education system must be tuned to creativity, must lead to imagination, must lead to new developments. If a child in the early stage itself, parents tell them, oh, you should go for higher studies to USA. You start like that, how the child mentality will be. And the whole sequence starts like that. The school, college, everywhere, it is in that direction, things move. So this is what I objected into the education system. Good. What happened? Are you listening? You're not talking?
Technology. Technical issue.
Yeah, technical issue.
There's a technical issue with Priya's.
It's lagging. I'm connecting her.
Priya is online, no? Priya is the mic.
Yeah, there's.
No, she dropped. Okay, I'll call her.
The people can they ask a question directly?
Yes, I will refer to a question posted. I'm Susan Koshi here, but I'm referring to a question posted by V. Rajendran. He's of Desai. His question is to Sri Narendra. Everyone says that these days there is degeneration in standards, systems, etc., and every system is corrupt, like the police, the administration, civil service, politics, etc. Do you really subscribe to this view? Number one. And is it really so pessimistic? Do good things not happen? What are we leaving for our next generation?
See, when we talk of the police, I have worked in the Home Ministry. Our police are the most overworked people. They solve a large number of crimes. Our intelligence agencies and the police prevent any number of terrorist plots. But if one terror incident happens, we start blaming the intelligence people. Then traffic. There is overcrowding on the roads. The number of traffic police available to the number of the thousands of vehicles is so low in India. Still, the rate of accidents is very, very low. We have not invested sufficiently in administration, I can tell you. Even the civil service. Compared to the large country, what is the number of civil servants in India? It is 35 million. Police ratio, if you take, there is not even one policeman for 10,000 population. So the system is getting overworked. Then the citizenry is not yet highly disciplined. There is also a problem in India. Therefore, every aspect that you take, for as Amartya Sen says, our story is the story of uncertain glory. There is a lot of success, there is a lot of failure. Even the Prime Minister himself, as Chief Minister of Gujarat, he came to address a college in Delhi. In that famous speech, what did Mr. Narendra Modi say? India's story looks like a half-filled glass. Whether you look at the half-empty glass or the half-full glass. Therefore, for everything that we say administration is bad, the corrupt, police are not working, things are collapsing. The problems are multiplying because of the population, because of the demand. We don't plan ahead. For instance, floods. The Scandinavian countries, do you know what they have planned for their floods? For the next 500 years. Whereas in India, when we plan for a flood level, we say last 100 years. So how do you plan for it? I used to be principal advisor of the Planning Commission. I always used to say that, why are you thinking of 25-year plans? Because why don't we look ahead? By 25 years, yes, have a perspective plan, but you have to look far ahead than your immediate future. What is happening today is, due to electoral politics, the cycle is 4 years. The 5th year, already the politician, the administration looking at an election. If anything is done, it is done in the first 2 years of any elected government. Already there are dissidents. By then, the steam is out. How to win the next election? This electoral cycle is creating its own problems in every sphere of governance. I cannot say, what is the standard by which we are judging? Are we judging by Singapore standard? Are we judging by American standards? Or judging by our standards or African standards? If you compare to Africa, we're much better off. If you compare it to developed countries, we can always say, this is something like theory of relativity. How do you relate? To whom do you relate? Have I answered the question?
Yes, sure, sir. Thank you very much. Indeed.
Well,
there is one. Yeah, Priya, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. There is one common question to both our chief guests today. Sir, what should be the focus point for younger generations for a progressive nation and for a better committed future for India? Shivatanu Pillai sir can take it first, and then we can come to Narendra sir. What should be the focus point for younger generations for a progressive nation and for a better committed future for India?
In my speech itself, I have covered these points. As far as the youth is concerned today, 100 million youth. First, they should love their country, number one. They should have a vision for them, as Dr. Kalam said, dream for a mission and work for it. Number two, have to achieve that, to develop your knowledge as well as put hard work. Third thing is, don't get defeated by problems. This is very important. See, the message which Dr. Kalam has given to me is, don't get defeated by problems. Problems will come. Anything you do, there will be problem. Anything you want to achieve, there will be problem. Don't worry about it. You have to become the captain of the problem. That's what he said. Idumbaiki idumbai padupar, idumbaiki idumbai padadavar. So that is what is needed for the youth to develop. First, they should think high. Then they have to work hard. Then achieve things by hard work and knowledge. And finally, don't get defeated by problems. If they do that, definitely their life will be better.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. So, Narendra, sir, can we hear from you, sir?
See, I would not put anybody to say, think of the nation, nation progress, etc. Yes, think of the nation, be loyal to the nation, you are patriotic already. Very often, the youth lose their focus between the years 15 and 30. It is these crucial years when everybody has to think of himself first, how to be a success myself in my life. What can I do in these formative years when there are opportunities? Because opportunity is very fleeting. Once the opportunity missed, it is gone. All of us, I'm 80. I have gone through this. Had I not lost my focus between the years of 15 and 30, I would have been where I was. Therefore, focus yourself between the years of 15 to 30. As Dr. Pillai said, have a dream, but just dreaming does not help. Map out what needs to be done to achieve the dream. There could be failures, all right, either a plan B. So make a success of yourself in life, then be relevant to your own local environment. Then think of the nation, the community, etc. If you are a failure, then you can't think of the community, you can't think of the nation. Start with yourself first, make a success of yourself, dream, but have a plan to achieve the dream and have plan B.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. We just have one closing question, sir, to Sivaddhanu Pillai, sir. So what will be our position in space technology after 5 years? This is a question from Mr. Prime Point Srinivasan.
Today we are working for Chandrayaan 3 now. To land on the moon, take samples and analyze these samples on real time to find out what exotic materials the moon has got. One material has already been told that through the earlier missions, Apollo missions, that is called helium-3. Helium-3 is a very, very important material which can generate energy in a non-radioactive way. That means uranium is radioactive. Helium is non-radioactive. The helium-3 is 100 times powerful than uranium. So you are having a non-radioactive, powerful material available, which will be amenable for fusion technology. Today, we don't have the fusion technology. So what we have to do is we have to master fusion technology. So 7 nations have joined together and developing a 500 megawatt reactor together that is being developed at France with India's participation for 2025. So 2025, once the reactor goes on, it becomes critical, then we will know how to make reactors for fusion technology. When that is available, by 2030, I will say, India will be in a position to use helium-3 for generating energy. That means by the time we should bring helium-3 from moon, mined from moon, and bring it here. That means manned missions are required. So 2022, we are targeting the first manned mission. And slowly it will, 2 people, 3 people will go on, and we'll go to greater heights, and finally we'll land on the moon. That is the way as things are going. I forecast that India will set up its factory on the moon in 10 years' time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. One closing question to Narendra, sir. So you have actually seen many press conferences, and you have actually managed many critical situations for India in the international arena. Which was your most challenging, sir, and how did you actually handle it?
I tell you a very funny incident. It involves Dr. Abdul Kalam, Chidambaram, Kapotka, and this is soon after Pokhran 2. There are a lot of misunderstanding within the scientific community, between Dr. Kalam and Mr. Chidambaram, etc., etc. So I was asked to manage a press conference to be held by them. And I sat between the two. And I had requested both Dr. Chidambaram and Dr. Kalam that please answer only technical questions. No political question need be answered. Because in those days, the question used to be whether we have a nuclear missile technology, then whether it can carry the warheads, then who would be the targets. These are the questions the media was trying to ask. And any yes or no, because we were under sanction from the United States and we had to be extremely careful. Therefore, I was tasked by the Prime Minister that you moderate the press conference in such a way that no political questions should be taken, you answer them to the best of your ability. So as we were halfway through the press conference, my secretary rushed and he said, "Sir, there is a phone call from one of the very important persons on a secret phone, and he is insisting you must come." So I rushed. And he said, "Look, just now Pakistan exploded the nuclear bomb. Please tell this to Dr. Kalam and Dr. Chidambaram. And these are my orders." I came, sat, I did not say anything to either of them. Then, after 10 minutes, the secretary rushed again to me. He said, "Sir, the same gentleman is on the line. He's insisting you must come and speak." It was quite distance, so somehow I managed to go there. He said, "Look, that is there. I have been falsely informed. Pakistan had not exploded the bomb." So I came back. I did not say anything. In the meanwhile, somebody from the External Affairs Ministry, a joint secretary, rushed in, and he greatly announced that Pakistan has exploded the bomb. So both Dr. Chidambaram and they wanted to react. I said, "No, we are not reacting." I said, "This is our press conference about Pokhran explosion. If Pakistan exploded the bomb, they will announce it. If you have any questions, please ask them. And at the moment, we are only talking about how Pokhran 2 happened, and whatever technical questions are there, the eminent scientists would answer them." So it's the most difficult time, because if we had announced that Pakistan has exploded the bomb, if we had reacted, firstly, we are civil servants. The response has to come at a political level. So this is one of the very delicate situations I had placed. And later, the eminent person who had called me on the secret phone complimented me, "Thank you, you did not announce this." Because some earthquake had happened somewhere near Kabul, and that had been monitored by Indian agencies. They mistook it for a nuclear explosion.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I'm sure like none of our urge of hearing both of you more is, it is like the sky's the limit. We just want to hear you more and more, but with this limited time, and I'm so glad that both of you were, explaining it to us in such a, basic level that all of us could understand all this huge, experiences of yours and rich experiences of yours. Thank you so much to Narendra sir and Shivadanu Pillai sir for, sharing your views with us. And before we go to the vote of thanks, I would just want you to quickly see our team who has helped us from the back end running the show. So we have Shriman Ramachandra Raja. Can you just please unmute and say a hi? Yeah, and then we have Vasu Rajput, who has been helping us on the administration fund. Hi, Vasu. Just wave your hand, Vasu. Yeah, and then we have Srinivasa Gopal, who's helping us on the social media management. Hi, Srinivasa Gopal.
Ben.
And we have Sridhar Raj, who's our convener, helping us on the administrative front. And we had Nandini Alagar, who just left us for some technical hits. So she's been taking care of the IT front. So thank you so much to all your kind responses in such a very genuine factor where each of us could take it and consume it to the best of it. And can I request Shriman Ramachandra Raja to deliver the vote of thanks?
We should like to tell you thank you.
Thank you very much
for conducting
it is such a pleasure, sir. We really would wish to hear more of you, sir, but it is so it'll be so unfair to hear all of your experience in just half an hour, but it has been so kind of you, both of you, to be so kind enough to share. There may be few baby questions which we have asked, but you have really been very courteous enough to express all our, to clarify all our doubts. So thank you so much for that, sir. And yes, Sriman, so can we hear the vote of thanks from you? One second, I'm trying to unmute you. You're not able to unmute. Let me help you. Wait.
Yes, ma'am. Got it. Namaste. I thank NGPL for giving me this opportunity to deliver the vote of thanks. This is a great day, which is both precious and nostalgic, marking the 74th Independence Day, a day celebrated by a patriotic Indian. I take this opportunity to thank the guest of honor, Dr. A. Sivadano Pillai, sir, for his intellectual and informative speech. We are indeed honored, sir. Our guest, Shri S. Narendra, sir, for encouraging and path-tracking speech, which will be remembered by us. The theme of today couldn't have been addressed better. And we will always strive to be the best Indian, making our country proud. I also thank our NGPL members and other participants to have made this event a memorable one. Our Prime Point Srinivasan sir, thank you so much for your overwhelming support and driving our energies in the right direction. Last but not the least, let us thank God for being there with us and keeping us safe during this pandemic and blessing us with good thoughts and right attitude. Thank you so much once again. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, Sriman. So can I request all participants to please unmute and then share a round of applause to our most beloved guest of honor today who had been with us on this special occasion. So can everybody unmute and give a round of applause? Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your time. And we would surely be learning more from you. And we would surely want to learn more from you, sir. And we will stay in touch with you whenever we are requiring any orientation in getting the better energy into the best possible way. We will surely touch base with you, sir. Thank you so much for your time once again, and really very kind of you, sir. Happy Independence Day to both of you and all our participants today. Thank you so much.
Narendra, thank you so much for nice talk, what we heard from you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Srinivasan.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
You are the invisible leader. Thank you.
I'm here. I'm here. Thank you.
Sir, Narendra, sir, you have to unmute, sir. You're on mute.
Thank you very much, Srinivasan.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, we were more excited to meet you, sir. For all those who didn't know, Narendra, sir, is one of the communication gurus for Prime Point Srinivasan, sir. So it is like we were more excited to meet the guru's guru. So it had a lot of preparation.
So kind of you.
Very good.
Thank you so much for being with us, sir. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
We can chant Jai Hind.
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 We are seeing new faces now.
Yes.
Yeah, you can introduce some of the people who are
yes, sir. Actually, we have
both the dignitaries. You can introduce our team and some of the people who are all.
Sure,
Rajendran is there. Rajendran. Susan is there, already known, and Rajendran is there. You can just unmute and you can introduce Priya. You can introduce Rajendran to both the guests.
Rajendran, sir, I don't find him, sir. Rajendran, sir, is not with us.
Siddhartha Mani is there, and program.
So we have Badri, sir, with us, sir.
Badri, sir.
Oh.
Sir, but to both Sir Dr. Pillai and Mr. Narendra, Mr. Badri is the former general manager of Canara Bank and Indian Overseas Bank, and he is also with us in another initiative, Digital Security Association of India. Mr. Badri.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It is great meeting the stalwarts of the country. Thank you, sir.
I really am greatly honored to have both of them here.
Yes.
One is a space guru and another is communication guru.
Yes. A wonderful combination.
Yes, sir. We also have Vasu Rajput, who is our member. He is from Punjab.
You please introduce Vasu. Where are you? Vasu, where are you?
Sir.
Can you open up? Sir.
Good evening, sir.
So Vasu is from Jalandhar, sir. Oh, he is from Jalandhar.
Yes, sir.
How many people participated today?
Actually, what had happened is like there was a little technical glitch, so there were close to 100 people who have registered. But I think we, sir, I think we should stop going.
So we are still on live, sir.
Yeah, I think we can stop going live now. I think we can stop going live, Srinivas Gopal.
140 people had registered.